Are you making decisions based on the status quo of your business or worst case scenario? Making the wrong decision can hurt you in the end. I'm Kevin Davis from Detailer's Helper, and we'll be talking about this subject today. So in our businesses, we want to talk about mitigating risk. I've talked about this in several videos about insurance and those kind of things, and this goes right along with that. Sometimes it's easy to sort of think about decisions in terms of, all right, well, this is probably what's going to happen. But when it comes to risk and risk mitigation, what you want to do is you want to try to make decisions based on worst case scenario. That's sort of what I do, and it's worked well for me. And I think it's a more aggressive approach in terms of trying to minimize or mitigate. Mitigate just means to set aside. Minimize the risk for yourself, for your business, for your personal livelihood, all that sort of thing. So this came up in the last couple of weeks because two of my friends have gone through some situations that really served as a gentle, in all reality, reminder for what the risk is and what we're doing, how bad things could be, and sort of an expensive list on both cases, but really something that could have been much worse for them given the situation that happened. So a couple of examples. First one was one of my friends ended up having all of their stuff stolen, all their detailing supplies, all of their tools, all their equipment. And the first question I, of course, asked was, well, you're insured, and so then you can file the insurance claim, pay your deductible, and be done. Well, as it turns out, they don't have insurance, which, as you know, I'm very adamant about that if you're doing this for money, that you have to have insurance. It's just a non-option. So that's going to end up costing them several $1,000s because they weren't insured and they got their stuff stolen. Well, I feel really badly for them. I think that that's terrible that someone would steal your stuff. But what I said to them was that I think this is probably a relatively cheap lesson to learn what actually can happen when it comes to worst case scenario. In my mind, having your stuff stolen actually isn't the worst case scenario because there are lots of more scenarios that could happen. Let's say that you're working on a new Corvette, 100,000, 120,000, whatever it is. The throttle slips, you end up driving the thing into the side of the building. Building collapses, totals the car. If you're not insured and you're under control of that car, you're in trouble. So that to me is a much worse case scenario than having several $1,000s worth of tools set up. So second example, I had a friend that's a detailer, had a guy that was working for him, doing some stuff around a vehicle, ended up actually taking some pictures, some video of them in the front seat, doing some revving of the engine, that kind of thing. Actually didn't drive it or anything, so it could have been worse. But it got back to the owner, impacted his reputation. The owner, he lost that owner as a client, that sort of thing. And I think that that's a scenario where that's actually not a bad thing because that allows him to learn some of these lessons. Now, let me just say that this guy is insured. He's a high professional, does everything very professional. And this was just one of those mistakes that he made, lack in judgment. We all do it. It all happens. But in this case, it lost him a client and tarnished his reputation within that client's circle of friends. It's an exotic car owner. Those guys sort of run together. And so he's going to make sure that he tells his friends this story. We talked through it. There's not a lot you can do to fix that. Just be open and honest. Describe that information. Describe the scenario. Take responsibility for it when that comes up, if it comes up for other clients, and just say, hey, those are just some clients that I'm going to lose that I'm not going to get. Maybe they'll come back to me and give me another chance, but not a lot you can do. But what I'm getting back to is that is not a bad lesson to learn in this case because it could have been much worse. The kid could have taken it out, done some donuts, put it again into another car, could have killed somebody. Who knows what that is? But that's the worst case scenario, which is what I try to think. So in terms of risk mitigation, first thing, get insurance. That's really key. Garage keepers and garage liability, general liability insurance to make sure you're covered for all the scenarios. You can talk to your insurance agent about what those values mean. That's a non-option. I'm going to continue to stand by that. Even if you're doing this part-time, if you're taking money from customers and you're in care of their vehicles, you have to make sure that your butt is covered. You have to make sure that you have insurance because you need to be able to cover yourself, cover the client stuff. It's just irresponsible to not have it. And if you end up damaging a $200,000 car, you can end up paying for that for the rest of your life, working part-time at McDonald's to try to make ends meet and making payments on this stuff. So that could be a big, serious deal. So in the other case, you have a standard of care when you're the boss, when you're the owner, and you are taking responsibility for a customer's property, in this case, a vehicle in most of our cases. So you are responsible for every decision that gets made around that. Even if it's a part-time person, a third-party photographer, a third-party worker, whatever it happens to be, that car is in your care and you're responsible for it. So you need to make decisions based on worst-case scenario. In my mind, if it's there should never be, if I'm responsible for the vehicle, there should never be a case where someone else is that I don't trust or that I don't trust to make the same decisions I would should have control over it. They shouldn't be in the front seat. They shouldn't be starting the car. They shouldn't probably be moving the car, that kind of thing. Obviously, if it's a part-time employee or a full-time employee of mine and I am then giving them responsibility and I've trained them to know the expectations, then that's a different scenario. I'm talking about people that you don't necessarily trust or haven't necessarily explained all the information that need to be explained in order to have the same standard of care that you would have. Sorry, long explanation there. But the other thing you want to make sure of is that you have gotten permission from the customer if you're doing any kind of photography, video, that sort of thing. That's sort of another component to that scenario. And so make sure that you understand that this is something that someone's entrusted with me to take the best care that I can. Their vehicle, it's their personal property. And so that you want to make sure you do everything to be respectful. That includes asking permission for certain things. Can I move it? Can I take pictures of it? Can I post them on social media? Can I put it on my website? That sort of thing. It's not a bad idea when you have them sign the paperwork that you put that in the contract. That can work. Some people might get a little weird about that, but make sure you ask for permission anyway. So that's another cover your butt kind of a thing. So really what I wanted to just discuss with you quickly is, hey, make sure that you're making good decisions based on worst case scenario. Think through each of these decisions on what could possibly happen and then come to a balance of making the right decisions on mitigating that risk, minimizing that risk. So it's good insurance to the point where you want to make sure you're covered for the cars that you're doing. That's a no-brainer. It's making decisions on making sure your butt is covered, to ask the right questions, to ask the right questions of the right people, to make sure you get the right things addressed ahead of time. And so that's really just something that will raise your level of professionalism and really keep you out of trouble, and make sure you have control of the situation. I hope that helps. I'm Kevin Davis doing what I do so you can do what you do better.